So it's starting to get hot here again in Britain, with temperatures forecasted up to 34 degrees Celsius. And right on schedule, people are complaining, weather warnings are going out, and fans and aircons are all going out of stock. Because I guess everyone needs new ones every year? Brits are built for the cold, and when we get a heatwave, it hits hard. People don't tend to prepare since it's only hot for like 2 weeks in the whole year, so we just suffer with it and accept that we suck at hot weather. At least that's what I thought for the longest time, but then I started seeing videos of tourists and the like dealing with a British heatwave, and they do not do very well. They call it the humbling when they experience it. Even people from way hotter climates like the Aussies, who regularly deal with temperatures of over 30°C and even exceeding 40°C, having a hard time. So what's happening? Is the UK just a cursed god-forsaken land that punishes all those who dare reside here? I mean, maybe. Have you seen the state of this fucking country? Okay, no. I think it's a case of multiple circumstances all laid on top of each other that creates a really unpleasant period during the heatwave. It's not the heat that gets you, it's the humidity. We've all heard this before, but it is true. The higher the humidity, the worse the perceived temperature. In the heat, sweat doesn't evaporate and it can feel like you're chewing on the air. We have around 70% humidity during the summer, but honestly, looking at other countries, it's not really that much higher. Compared to our neighbours in continental Europe, it's only a bit higher. Places in southern Europe do have a bit less, but when you look at some states in America, it's not really that different. The humidity definitely doesn't help, but it's also not the sole problem that people make it out to be. One other problem is the erratic weather. In mid-March, I remember a fairly cold day, then 2 warm days, followed by a frosty morning that then became another warm day, only to get heavy rain in the evening and a cold snap after that. Literally, Monday can have you needing your winter coat, only to get to Thursday we need to unzip your summer jacket. In fact, over in Swindon, located in the south of England, they ended their last heatwave with a battering of hailstone on the same day. So why does this matter? Well, we really don't get a chance to acclimatise to the hot weather. Acclimatisation is where people adjust to the environment, altitude, light, and of course, temperature and humidity, something that only takes a few days or weeks. It's hard for Brits to acclimatise to hot weather when it can drop 15°C a few days later. Something that doesn't help things is our bad practices. Since it only gets hot a few times a year, we really don't learn from our mistakes and fall into some unhelpful habits. One mistake is opening windows. This only really works when the air outside is cooler than the air inside. Holy shit, that is a massive fucking spider. Otherwise, outside of airflow, that can be solved with a fan, or the room getting stuffy, you're just letting hot air in. I see it constantly in the late mornings when the temperature starts going up, so people open the windows to cool things down. Mate, the reason the temperature is going up is because it's getting hotter outside. Just letting that hot air in accelerating the process. 2 are humidifiers. Why in a country that has high humidity would you want a humidifier putting more moisture in the air? Because we're fucking stupid. Honestly, I made this mistake for the longest time, but it doesn't help that these things straight up lie to you. Look, it has a frost symbol on it. That must mean it cools the room down, right? No, I remember trying everything. Filling up with cold water, putting ice cubes in it, ice blocks. Nothing worked. Even with ice blocks in a reservoir, it wouldn't produce cold air. The amount of nights I've had with one of these things blowing on me lying in my own sweat is too many. A regular fan would have been better. Lastly, the lack of air conditioning. We don't have built-in aircons in our houses, you only really get them in stores or offices. I did bite the bullet last year and picked up a portable one, and you know what? It's been a godsend. They're not cheap, but for a one-time purchase that I used set for a good few years, it was worth it for me. One problem though, Britain has the highest energy prices in the Western world, higher than Europe's average and way higher than America's. One reason is because our government thought it would be a fantastic idea to rely so much on solar power for our energy production in a country that literally has some of the least amount of sunlight in the world. So yeah, between buying an aircon and paying to run it, it can be a bit much for people for only a few days in the year when it gets unbearably hot. Then again, if you're running AC for only a few days a year, the cost shouldn't matter too much. Oh yeah, they're also really loud and a bit cumbersome to move around. So yeah, let's move on to our houses, because they play a bigger part in this than I think people realise. We are built for the cold, so our homes don't have any overhangs or awnings and are made out of bricks, which comes with many advantages: weather resistance, low maintenance, noise reduction, and are great at insulation since bricks absorbs heat and slowly releases it, but I think this ends up being a double-edged sword. Bricks are so great at absorbing heat that they were used as effectively thermal batteries as far back as the ancient Romans, and even as recent as last century. In fact, some companies today are actually looking at special fire bricks being used as a modern day solution to storing energy, but I'm getting sidetracked. Bricks absorbs heat and then that heat escapes, which is a problem when you build a house out of them and it gets hot. All that heat that's been absorbed during the day now slowly releases during the night, meaning even after the temperatures cool down in the evening, the house really doesn't. It feels like you're in an oven on a very low heat. The last thing about houses to talk about are the size of them. They're on the small side. Cramped into tiny rooms surrounded by other people and encased with bricks, it gets really stuffy really quickly. The upside though is that an aircon unit can quickly cool down a room since it's such a small space. The last thing to cover are the long days. The British Isles are located high up on the Earth's northern latitude, so the sunlight hours are long. So if all goes to plan, this video will be out soon after Britain's longest day. And around this time, it starts getting light at around 3:30 AM and starts going dark around 10:30 PM, so over 18 hours of light. But when I say getting dark or light, I mean it. I can see the tail end of twilight sky at midnight. Yeah, we also get really long twilight hours, which is honestly a silver lining. I like them. But imagine going to bed at a reasonable hour like 10:30 PM and it's still a little bit light out. Wake up in the middle of the night at 4:30 to let the fucking cat out and it's light outside, and you try and go back to sleep. Yeah, between the sunlight and the heat, it sucks trying to sleep in these months. Blackout blinds are essential. But let's be real, most of you are watching this at stupid o'clock, and like me, you'll experience the only few dark hours of the day while you're awake. It's even worse trying to sleep if you're a night owl. Now combine that with the fact that we're in brick houses, slowly releasing heat during the dark night time, that are only like 3 to 4 hours, only for the sun to come up and start heating the house all over again. The house never really gets a chance to cool down, and you're in a perpetual state of heating up. So yeah, that's why the heat is so bad in Britain. I've not experienced heat from another country, so I don't really have any point of comparison. But here, it sucks. Honestly, the lack of aircon is the biggest problem. It's so hard to cool down. At least when it's cold you can wrap yourself up along with a hot drink to warm up. Bonus for the comfiness of it. Which isn't a word. In the heat, you're just fucked without aircon. Cold drinks and ice cream can only get you so far. I think I have the worst case scenario for this. I'm in a small cramped room that is south facing, so I'm hit with the sun nearly 24 hours a day, along with my PC dumping heat into the room the whole time it's on. My clothes end up damp from sweat and they get all sticky from the humidity, probably smelling as bad as your typical VTuber. Anyway, that's all. Just a random ramble about the hot weather here. Watching non-Brits suffering with the heat waves like us had me wondering and led me down a short rabbit hole. You can probably tell I'm way more of a winter person, although summer does have some silver linings. Barbecues, nice walks in the milder days, and being able to go out in the garden with a drink during the twilight hours and the cool breeze is great. Anyway, that's all. Bye bye. Oh yeah, I also get allergies during the summer. Not as bad as they used to be, but still. People are always like, oh, go out in the nice weather. Yeah, nah, it's not nice when I'm sneezing my face off and my eyes are pouring. I'm good.